wholeness tribe, I always feel like I need to start at a baseline so people can understand where I'm coming from, as I look as if I'll be considered as someone who is a black man or a black person in the Northern American state of consciousness. But since I've been here, I would never associate it with the word black, but I always was put into a mind state to look to figure out what it means to be called black and participate in or associate myself with the word of being black in the slang dictionary of what the mind of the people coming from the ghetto or leaving the state of physical shackles, slavery in North America versus, being told since I was, since 4 years old of coming into this North American state of consciousness, let's call it that, North American state of consciousness, that I was African. So it's like, what does it mean to be African? Was put behind me growing up here in North America, and never really pursued it until my middle 20s, so it was 2 decades that went by before I even started to even care to investigate what it means to be African. But before, due to the peer pressure and the feeling of wanting to belong in a crowd of people who looks like you, I found myself navigating to what what radio and television and the neighborhood defined as what was black. So, now that I can say that I've experienced that world, and now looking at what it means to be African, now, the question goes is like, what does it, what were we before we were identifying to either one of those words, either if it's the black word or the white word or the African word. These are all words in English that, as a first generation African traveler abroad, or quote alien, you come into a world that's foreign to what the guardians, not even you as a child, because it's what the guardians put out in terms of expectation in raising the alien, the first generation traveler, to another terrain. The imagination that goes along growing in the mind of the child while living under the guardianship of the parentals or the parents, who were, of course, the guardians, to guard the precious cargo, which the precious cargo is the virgin child, the virgin mind of the child, begins the protective duties of a parent from, these definitions and these identifications of something that we were less than. So this begets a whole nother experience of recognition, growing up, awakening to the fact that we are not, crayons. We are not these colors, because we just wear different complexion suits, but what is inside of us is all the same. Genetics, DNA, cells, nutrients, proteins, the vitamins, amino acids, the things that the body needs, the organs that the body have, is all the same. Of course, now we can use English to start to identifying these parts of the body, as if we were only using English, or as if English was the only language to describe these things. But if you come into a world of parents and neighborhoods and street signs and community gatherings where everyone is speaking the same language, then the basic of understanding will be based on that. So it's like awakening to the other possibilities of what we've grown up to begets another birth. And since 2018 is, I came forward into this reality once again of being in North America from a 3-year stay in the continent called Africa, current day called Africa, previous days called many different names, Al-Kibulan or the Ethiopians, the land of the Ethiopians, so the land of the Sudanese, so the land of the charcoal-faced people or the black-faced people that we are using English to identify a type of energy wearing a casing that's much more formidable in the environment. So the environment having a lot of energy, sun projecting out on the terrain, the hue of that light being would be more of a darker complexion to facilitate the energy exchange. So so those people who came out of this particular terrain that we're calling Africa today come to America and just totally disconnect from what it ever meant to being out in the terrain because of the new systems that's created to function, that we are created to function in this environment. Of course, we are more inside of buildings from rise to sunset, and then of course when the sun sets, we're still inside of four walls and a roof, watching television, using other sources of light. So this type of interaction wasn't the interactions of a generation ago. So it's not even hundreds of years or thousands of years that the genes and the genetics and the structural presence and mindset of a newborn child coming into a broad reality, a very different reality, has to exchange in thought and becoming something else that genetically it wasn't predisposed to be. It's like it will take some time to domesticate a lion or any kind of wild animal, a tiger or a bear, according to natural sciences, to become something domesticated like a dog or a cat today. This takes hundreds or thousands of generations to even to start seeing degrees of lessening of what nature predisposed for the being to function as. And in the environment that nature created the being to function as, it will stimulate the being in a different way than if the being was inside of buildings or cages, a good percentage of its life, and children are being born into this type of scenario. So this, brings out a very interesting perspective to ponder on in terms of what life has really been for people who have been associating themselves as blacks in North America, and then of course, realizing this, I had to bounce. We get to, I heard the great master teacher say, we get ourselves to think about what it means to be, let's say now African, or even if you say Japanese, or you say Mexican, or you say Chinese, what does it mean for a person to only be identified as that one word, all of their lives, and never coming out of that realm to experience what it means to be, let's say, Hawaiian, something totally different from what the child's program has been conditioned, what the child has been conditioned to identify itself with until it becomes an adult. And then from the adult stages, growing into, marrying and having children and starting a career in that complacent, locked in mindset until death does that spirit being apart from that physical, genetic, or not even genetic, but physical, mental lockdown that individual was put under for the rest of his life. Versus, like I said earlier about just coming out, being a first generation abroad and having the opportunity to visualize oneself as something else, and then to realize that something else wasn't even what it was, and then come into a whole nother reality to realize that either one of the names or the identities was just an attempt to identify something, the unknown, an attempt to identify the unknown in placing a lock and a key, not even giving the key, but blocking the mind to just identify for one aspect of itself for the rest of its, breath here on earth, which is really true imprisonment, and what, post physical slavery brought into this matrix and this reality that we're living into. It brought this secondary type of slavery, which is mental. So it's just been a journey to come into this realization, and I just seek to, keep being present, in realizing how much more there is to life, now that this level of knowledge has been given to us again, so now we're able to access the greatest potentials of ourselves once again in this lifetime. What are we going to do with it? So I'm just excited, to really be a part of this collective, and keep working on ourselves so we can, see a better world for the future generation. As we make ourselves better, the world can be better for the next generation. So I'm, I don't want to make this too long of a recording, but I feel like I did get a lot out in this little piece of this 12 to 13 minute, video that I'm going to upload. Got to do it, just so people can get, so I can have like at least a ground to make the next recording. So wholeness and balanced vibrations, family and friends, as we are approaching this 2020, and it's coming upon us, to really clear our minds and clear our sight once again, so we can see clearer and see what is opportune for us, in what this platform has brought into existence, in a conscious network where we can share, information with one another, and displaying our own uniqueness that, people need to see. People need to, or there'll be people who can gravitate to a certain type of uniqueness that can't gravitate to another type of uniqueness. So it just really takes upon us to just have enough, courage to just come forth and just share our peace, our wholeness, so we can help someone else get to theirs. So much love, wholeness, and balanced vibrations.